Best part of the day, right here.
Better than I ever imagined.
It was a rainy Thursday evening in Boston, and the streets shimmered under the glow of the streetlights. Jason had just closed his laptop after a long day at work when his phone buzzed. The name on the screen made his heart skip, Emily. He hadn't spoken to her in months, not since she had abruptly moved out of her apartment after a messy breakup. But now, her text was simple. "Can we meet? I really need to talk to you." Jason hesitated. Emily had always been a whirlwind of emotions, impulsive and fragile in ways that made him worry more than anyone else. Yet, he knew she never reached out without a reason. He grabbed his coat and stepped into the rain, the streets reflecting his nervous anticipation. When he arrived at the little cafe they used to frequent, he found her sitting by the window, staring blankly outside, her hair damp from the drizzle. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile, and his chest tightened at the sight. He walked over, sliding into the seat across from her. "Hey," he said softly, trying to mask the concern in his voice. "Hey," she whispered, barely meeting his eyes. She tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear, and Jason noticed how tense her shoulders were. Something was wrong, more than the usual chaos Emily carried with her. "So, you wanted advice?" he asked gently, trying to ease her into the conversation. He had expected the usual: heartbreak, confusion, a request to help her navigate another storm of life. Emily shook her head, and her hands trembled slightly as she took a sip of her coffee.
Everything is going to be all right.
"No," she said, her voice
promise.
barely audible. "I don't think I
Right
want
here
advice
with-
this time." Jason's eyebrows furrowed. She had never refused guidance from him before. There was always something behind her requests, something she didn't say outright. But this felt different. "What do you mean?" he asked, leaning forward, his concern growing. She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I need you to do something for me. Something I can't do alone." Jason's heart skipped a beat. He had prepared himself for late-night talks about breakups, bad decisions, or lonely nights, but her words carried a weight that he wasn't expecting. There was urgency, vulnerability, and an almost desperate trust in her gaze that unsettled him. "Anything," he said immediately, without thinking, feeling a strange pull he hadn't felt in years. Emily shook her head, biting her lip. "It's not just a favor. It's something much bigger, and I don't know if I'm ready to say it out loud yet." Jason's mind raced. What could be so important that she couldn't even say it? His instincts screamed that this wasn't just another emotional storm she was weathering. It was something life-changing, and she trusted him enough to involve him. "Emily, whatever it is, you can tell me," he said gently, reaching out to cover her hands with his. The warmth of his touch made her flinch slightly, but she didn't pull away. For a long moment, she just looked at him, her eyes searching his as if weighing the risk of sharing her secret. And then, in a voice that was barely above a whisper, she said the words that made his heart stop. "Jason, I want you to move in with me." The cafe seemed to fall silent. The hum of the coffee machines, the soft chatter around them, faded into the background as Jason stared at her, trying to process what he had just heard. He had imagined her asking for advice, maybe a shoulder to cry on, maybe even a simple favor. But this was something he never expected, something that crossed every boundary he thought existed between them. Emily's hands shook in his, and she finally met his gaze, her eyes full of fear and hope at the same time. "I don't know why I'm asking you, Jason. I can't do this alone, and you're the only person I trust." Jason felt the weight of her words settle over him. He didn't know if he was ready, didn't know if this was wise, but looking into her eyes, he realized one. Jason agreed, though he still wasn't entirely sure what he was stepping into. The drive to Emily's apartment was quiet, the kind of silence that buzzed with unspoken tension. The rain had slowed to a soft drizzle, leaving the streets glistening under the dim streetlights. Jason stole glances at Emily. She seemed smaller in the passenger seat, as if carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, and he couldn't help but feel a fierce protectiveness rising inside him. When they arrived at her apartment, she hesitated at the door. Her fingers trembled on the handle, and Jason reached out, gently brushing his hand against hers. "It's okay," he said softly. "Whatever this is, we'll face it together." She gave a small, grateful smile before opening the door. The apartment smelled faintly of rain and old books, cozy yet tinged with a sense of unease. Emily led him to the living room, where the soft glow of a single lamp lit the space. She motioned for him to sit, but Jason remained standing, waiting for her to speak. Finally, she turned to him, her eyes brimming with tears she was desperate to hold back. "Jason, I know this is sudden, and I know it's a lot to ask, but I don't have anyone else. I need you to move in with me, for a while. I can't manage everything on my own. My job, my bills, my life." Jason blinked, trying to process her words. It wasn't just about sharing space. It was about trust, vulnerability, and the silent plea for companionship she had never voiced before. He had always known Emily had a tendency to shoulder too much, but this was different. "Emily," he began, his voice catching, "are you sure? It's not something small. Living together changes everything." "I know," she admitted, her voice shaking. "But I don't just want someone to help me. I want you. I trust you more than anyone else in my life. Please, Jason, I can't do this alone." Her honesty hit him like a wave. He had always cared for her, more than he was willing to admit, even to himself. But now, faced with her vulnerability, her reliance on him in a way that was intimate and personal, he realized how deep his feelings ran. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, the weight of the decision pressing on him. "Okay," he said finally, taking a seat across from her. "I'll move in, but only if you promise we'll figure everything out together. No rushing, no assumptions. We do this right." Emily's face lit up with a mixture of relief and nervous excitement. She reached across the small table, taking his hand in both of hers. "Thank you, Jason. You don't know how much this means to me." Over the next few days, Jason helped Emily settle in, moving his things into a spare corner of her apartment. It was awkward at first, adjusting to each other's routines, learning when to speak and when to give space. But slowly, the tension eased, replaced by small moments of connection. Sharing coffee in the mornings, laughing at inside jokes, or simply sitting in silence with a comforting presence beside each other. Yet, even as the days passed, Jason couldn't shake the sense that there was more beneath Emily's request. Her eyes often carried a shadow he couldn't quite place, and sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, she would stare at him as if trying to decide something important. One evening, as they cooked dinner together, Emily's hands lingered on his arm longer than necessary. Her laughter had a nervous edge, and her eyes met his with a seriousness that made his stomach twist. "Jason," she said softly, pausing as she chopped vegetables, "there's something else, something I haven't told you yet. It's hard for me to say, but I think I have to. I don't want to scare you." Jason stopped, his heart tightening. He had felt it coming. The unspoken truth, the secret she carried. But hearing her words made the air between them thick. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions for both of them. Living together had brought a new closeness, an intimacy that neither Jason nor Emily had anticipated. Simple routines, making coffee, sharing a couch, brushing past each other in the kitchen, carried a weight they couldn't ignore. Every glance lingered a little longer, every touch felt electric, and the air between them buzzed with unspoken feelings. One night, as they were sitting on the balcony, watching the city lights shimmer on the wet streets below, Emily turned to him with a seriousness that made his heart skip. "Jason, I need to tell you everything. You deserve to know why I asked you to move in." Jason took her hands in his, feeling the familiar tremble that always accompanied her vulnerability. "I'm listening," he said, his voice steady despite the knot of anticipation in his chest. Emily took a deep breath, her eyes glistening. "After my breakup, I realized something about myself. I've been avoiding my feelings, pretending I could handle everything alone. But I couldn't. And then, you came back into my life, and it hit me that I don't want to do this without you. I need you, not just for support, but because you're the person I care about more than anyone else." Jason's chest tightened. He had always known she was special, but hearing her admit it made everything feel real, tangible, and frighteningly beautiful. He brushed a tear from her cheek, feeling the warmth of her skin against his fingertips. "Emily, I feel the same way. I've always cared about you. Maybe more than I should admit. But seeing you like this, trusting me, I can't ignore it anymore." Her lips trembled into a small, hopeful smile. "So, what do we do now?" she asked softly. Jason hesitated, his mind racing. This wasn't just about feelings. It was about taking a step into the unknown, risking everything for something that might not have a clear path. But as he looked into her eyes, he realized there was no question. "We take it one day at a time," he said. "Together." Her smile widened, and for the first time in months, a sense of peace settled over her. They leaned toward each other, a soft, tentative kiss sealing the unspoken promise between them. It wasn't hurried or desperate. It was careful, meaningful, and filled with the weight of everything they had both felt but never admitted. The weeks that followed were a delicate balance of discovery and closeness. They navigated shared spaces, late-night talks, and quiet mornings that felt like stolen moments from another life. But as the emotional walls between them crumbled, something deeper grew, a connection that neither had expected, born from vulnerability, trust, and a shared willingness to face life together. One rainy evening, Jason found Emily sitting on the couch, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring out at the city. He sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her, feeling her lean into him. "You know," he said softly, "I never thought a simple favor would lead to this. I never expected this." Emily laughed softly, resting her head on his shoulder. "Neither did I," she admitted. "But I'm glad it did. I can't imagine going back to the way things were." Jason kissed the top of her head, feeling the warmth of her presence. "Me neither," he said. "And I don't want to. Whatever comes next, we face it together." The rain outside fell steadily, painting the world in silver streaks, but inside the apartment, there was warmth, laughter, and the quiet certainty of a love that had grown stronger through vulnerability and trust. What began as a request for help had transformed into something neither of them expected, but both had secretly hoped for. And as they held each other, Jason realized that sometimes the most unexpected questions could lead to the most extraordinary answers. The night stretched on, filled with quiet conversation, gentle laughter, and the kind of closeness that only comes when two people